the shoe webinar all about how to start your Amazon business with shoes, how to add shoes to your Amazon business, what's the right way to start, what are some myths that a lot of people talk about that are absolutely not true. We want to make sure that you start off on the right foot. So, okay, I like puns, so you just have to deal with that. So anyway, we're talking about selling shoes on Amazon. My wife and I were going to be talking about our experience and a little bit about how we've been able to enjoy sourcing shoes, selling shoes, making profits off of shoes, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So again, if you think of any questions, put that in the question section. We'll do Q&A at the end. We're going to talk about, we're also going to give away a copy of our new course, The Reseller's Guide to Selling Shoes. So stick around to the end for that. And if you are watching this live or on the replay, we will have a recording of this available for you to watch again later, so stay tuned for that. So I want to do a little introduction about who we are and why you should trust us in the first place. I'm going to remove my face and Rebecca's face. We're going to just go straight to the PowerPoint for a certain part of this presentation. So let's see, we're going to say goodbye to us. See you in a little bit. All right, so now here we are with the presentation. We're going to talk about a lot of really cool things, but I just want to start off by talking about who we are. Who are we? Why should you trust us when it comes to sourcing shoes, selling shoes on Amazon? So, we're Stephen and Rebecca Smotherman. This is a picture of our family, and we love selling on Amazon. I've actually been an online seller since 1998. I started selling on eBay back in the old West days of eBay, when you actually could leave feedback for someone you didn't even have an auction with. It was just crazy. They didn't even figure that part out yet. But I first, started enjoying buying stuff on eBay. Then I needed to get rid of all the stuff I bought because I ran out of money. So I got addicted to selling on eBay and really enjoyed that. And eBay was kind of a hobby for about 10 years or so. And then, in 2011, I discovered Amazon FBA. My whole world turned upside down with Amazon FBA. I loved it. I loved the idea of sending all of my inventory, no longer having a garage full of inventory that I had to sell and package up and deal with. I was able to send all my stuff to Amazon and have them take care of that. So I was able to start that in 2011. I was able to make a full-time income with that to support me and my boys in about 6 or 7 months. And that was back when I was a single dad, because in 2013, I married Rebecca. We actually just celebrated our 4th year wedding anniversary, and she is an amazing wife and stepmom. And just before we got married, she actually joined my Amazon business. It was just me doing it at first, and she was like, "Hey, I can help out here and there," and now we actually do it both together. But the cool thing is we're able to make a full-time income by both of us spending only part-time hours doing it. And so since we're only spending part-time hours selling stuff on Amazon, we put together fulltimefba.com, and it's our goal to help other people turn part-time hours into a full-time income. So since you're here tonight, I got a little freebie for you, a little free gift for you. Here's a free sales rank chart and ebook. If you go to fulltimefba.com/sales rank, you'll get a free sales rank chart. This chart is something that I use when I'm sourcing to be able to make a smart sourcing decision. It has, if you look at the sales rank chart, it's got all the main categories in Amazon, the total number of items in each category, and then breaking down the sales ranks in the top 1%, 3%, 5%, 10%. And different categories have different personalities, so I like to choose, some categories I like to choose the top 3%, some the top 1%, some the top 5%. So anyway, this helps me make a good decision, and I update this every single month for the blog subscribers. In fact, tomorrow, if you are a subscriber to fulltimefba.com newsletter, you'll get the March updated newsletter for that. So that's there. And then there's also an ebook, Seller Central Tips. It's all about reimbursements, refunds, and how to correct other possible Amazon glitches. Just my gift to you. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of this so you have it, I'm about to go to the next slide, but I want to make sure you get these free gifts that will help you out in your Amazon business. All right, let's keep going. So when it comes to our experience selling shoes, we kind of started off a little rocky. but we've been able to really learn a lot from our mistakes and have been able to find a lot of great success. You know, some people, I guess women especially, have a passion for shoes. Some people have like, you know, dozens of shoes, hundreds of shoes. Well, we had a really nice appreciation for shoes, but recently it's turned into a passion, but not for keeping the shoes.
Yeah, I will say I did not have a passion for shoes before we got started selling them. I had like 6 pairs of shoes before we got started selling. That's not something that I was really into. Anyway, just wanted to throw that in there.
I want to clarify for everybody. Yeah. That's good. So yeah, we you know, but we've turned into really passionate lovers of shoes, but for the purposes of sourcing and selling shoes online, and we love doing that. And in less than a year, we started in August of 2015, and in less than 1 year, shoes became our largest source of revenue from our Amazon FBA business. And that's a big deal because you know, before we were sourcing, you know, toys and books and home items and kitchen items and toys and baby items and toys and grocery items and toys, but this really helped us to, it just took over all of the other categories combined. And get this, so far in 2017, shoes have been 65% of our revenue has come from selling shoes in the shoe category. And it's really helped us be able to continue to make a full-time income on Amazon by only spending part-time hours. We're actually selling less items on Amazon. Like the quantity of items that we're selling on Amazon are less, but because shoes are a higher priced item, we're actually making more by selling these shoes. We'll get into that. Let me talk a little bit about our experience last year. So again, I told you August of 2015 is when we got started, and by June of 2016, shoes were 38% of our overall revenue. We were averaging about 201% ROI. That was pretty awesome. In July of 2016, shoe sales were 29% of our overall revenue, and we actually got to increase our ROI to 214%. August and September had some really, again, a big chunk of our overall revenue, especially September, jumped up to 43%. Our ROI, that's hard to say, our ROI decreased a little bit, but still 154%, 125%, that's amazing. That's more than doubling our money, and it's been really awesome. October, our revenue percentage went down to 34%, and that's when Q4 started coming up. And then in November, it went down to 16% of our overall revenue, but that's because we were just killing it with toys, and our ROI was 113%, so still over doubling our money. And then in December, 24% of our revenue was shoe sales, and our ROI was 82%. But again, with October, November, and December, while our percentage of overall revenue went down, we actually made more sales, made more profits, because, you know, the Q4 velocity of sales that was going on, and we were just killing it also with toys because, you know, Q4, that's the time you want to stock up on toys and sell toys. So just a big increase there.
Just to say, we don't have a column here for dollar amounts, but November and December were dollar amount wise our highest months for shoes. So the 43% that you would see in September, the 24% in December was higher dollar amount than that because Q4, it was just, you know, tons of sales overall. Just wanted to throw that out there too.
Yeah, definitely. And what's really interesting, the week before Christmas and the week after Christmas, almost all of our other categories went silent when it comes to sales. It was like crickets, but shoes kept going. In fact, there were some days right before Christmas and the week after Christmas where the only thing we sold were shoes, and that really helped us out a lot. And then in January, we actually took the last half of December and the early part of January off from any retail arbitrage sourcing, but we were able to continue to make a full-time income with 79% of our overall revenue being shoes. And
I was still doing OA at that point, but we weren't sending in any more RA, toys, anything like that. We were doing solely OA, haha.
It's your turn for the puns.
Yeah, OA shoes in that last week of December and early part of January. And it was nice to take a break after all of the Q4 craziness
Yeah, it was.
and
It
still
was.
see the sales coming in.
Yeah, that was really cool, and it gave me an even bigger appreciation for shoes. So that's kind of been our experience. Right now, I'm going to turn things over to Rebecca, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about some things that we've learned and discovered when it comes to selling shoes on Amazon.
Okay, so if there's one thing that I want you to take away from today, and Stephen's already kind of touched on this, the one thing that I want you to take away from today is that shoes are profitable and they can boost your Amazon FBA business. They have done that for our business. Adding shoes really gave us a steady stream of sales throughout the year that increased our profits in our overall business and really gave us a boost throughout the year and not just at Q4. We still do Q4 big time with toys, but it's nice to have something that we can count on throughout the rest of the year that's not so dependent on that seasonal burst of sales. So there is a learning curve when it comes to shoes. I'm sure, you've heard a lot of stories about how difficult they are, and it is a different, just a different animal when it comes to trying to learn how to sell shoes. But I want you to have the right mindset, and that's part of what I'm going to be talking about in my part of the presentation tonight, is the type of mindset that can help you to look at selling shoes for the potential that it has and to overcome some of those difficulties that you might think are out there. Now, it is true you can't expect the same results in the shoes category that you might have seen if you're used to selling books or toys. You're not going to get a bunch of fast turns out of the shoes category right off the bat. And that was something that I felt like we really learned the hard way. That I started off trying to sell shoes with the same mindset of, okay, I'm going to send this batch of shoes into Amazon, and within 2 to 4 weeks, I'm going to see this big return on my money. And it didn't happen. And I was really frustrated and thought that I'd done something completely wrong. I needed to quit. But I didn't understand at that point what the long tail aspect of shoes can be. That doesn't mean that shoes are only long tail. And if you stick with it and you learn and experiment and are diligent in keeping track of how things are working in your inventory, you can find shoes that are fast turns. For example, there were some shoes that I bought within the last couple of weeks. I sent in a shipment. What day is today? So the date on the shipment was the 20th. Today's the 28th. The last couple of days, I've sold 3 pairs of shoes out of that batch. And I mean, we've sold shoes from previous batches and from months past, but 3 pairs of shoes within, and those are $100 plus shoes in the last couple of days from just last week. That's pretty exciting to me that we're at that point now that I know what kind of inventory to look for. So the profits are there. You just have to stick with it, learn how to source and sell shoes correctly. And so that's what we're going to be talking about more throughout the night. But we really want you to get started on the right foot, and just change your mindset about how you're going to be able to make money in this category. So those are the main things that I'm wanting you to take away. So having said that, let's jump into the 3 myths that we're going to cover tonight. 3 common myths about selling shoes on Amazon. So myth number 1, shoes are a gated category and it's hard to get approved and start selling in gated categories. So you may have seen some posts in Facebook groups about people trying to get ungated in different categories. There's lots of frustration, lots of back and forth with Seller Central, lots of just unknowns. Why am I not getting approved? Why is this not working out? I don't understand what they want from me. And that's the case in some other categories like grocery or health and beauty. But the truth about selling shoes and getting ungated in shoes is that getting ungated in the past was difficult, but it really isn't any longer. So when we got ungated back in 2015, that summer, we had to send in all sorts of flat files, and we had to send in photos and prove to Amazon that we could handle all these different aspects of the shoes category and that we knew how child variations and things like that work. But that's not how they're doing shoe approvals right now. For a while now, they've been doing auto approvals. And what that means is that you just have to fill out some forms and, basically click on a few things in Seller Central, and it's pretty easy to get ungated. So what I want to do right now is just kind of walk you through those steps about how to get ungated in shoes.
Yeah, Tess has made a comment. She said, "Shh, don't tell everyone how easy it is to get approved in the shoe category." We're sorry, Tess. We're totally going to do that.
Yeah, totally going to do that right now because we want, shoes aren't for everybody. There's not every seller is going to want to sell shoes or enjoy selling shoes or find shoes to be profitable for them. Everybody has their own niche, but if you can get ungated in the category, just to get ungated, just to try it if you want to at some point, it's good to have that door open to you. So the first step is to log into Seller Central to your account. That's pretty easy. And then you're going to hover over inventory. Up in the top left, there's the little tabs up there. You hover over inventory and all these other options pop up. And then there's the add a product is going to be one of the options. So click on add a product, and then that'll take you to another page. And you kind of have to look down a little bit and find there's going to be a place that says create a new product listing. So click on that, and then scroll down a little bit more, and there's going to be a place that says learn more. And I think there might actually be two places that say learn more, so you might have to try a couple of different times. But find the learn more that's going to take you to a page that has a bunch of categories listed on it. And you're going to scroll down under those categories and find, it's going to say categories and products requiring approval. So scroll down underneath that, and you're going to see in that list of categories shoes, handbags, and sunglasses. And for some reason, those are all clumped together in the application process. So click on that, and that's going to take you to a page that's going to show you some guidelines and different things to know about selling shoes and handbags and sunglasses. And so scroll down to the bottom of that page, and you're going to see a little button that says request approval, and you'll click that. So once you've done all that, once you click request approval, it's going to take you to a form that's going to ask you some questions, and you just need to answer them to the best of your ability. And it should only take a few minutes to answer those questions, and it's basically questions about your business and about your plans for selling shoes. And so once you've done that and you click submit, a lot of people are saying you just get approved within just a few minutes. But if for some reason you don't get approved within just a few minutes automatically, contact seller support, ask for feedback. I know when we got ungated and it was the more involved process, that I was able to talk back and forth with the Seller Central representative and say, why was I not approved? What's the deal? And just be persistent and ask politely if they can give you any feedback or any help, any suggestions for how to proceed. But really right now it should be pretty easy to get ungated. And then once you do get ungated, you're going to have access to this new category. You're going to have less competition because it's gated. The open categories like books and toys have so many more sellers in them, and so you're in general going to have less competition in the shoes category, and you're going to have access to millions of new products to sell. That's the part that's exciting. At that point, you are able to sell millions of new products that you weren't able to sell before. So I think this would be a good time if you want to take a screenshot right now. Be sure and do that because we're about to move on, and you can get this going so that after the webinar, we'd like to hear about anybody that is able to get approved.
Yeah, and if you're not able to take a screenshot, don't worry, you'll get access to the replay of this webinar, and you'll be able to watch it again or fast forward to this section to be able to see what's up.
Okay, so let's move on then to myth number 2. And so we're talking about the 3 myths of selling shoes on Amazon. We covered the first myth about it being hard to get ungated. The second myth is that it's hard to find profitable shoes to sell on Amazon. And this, again, is where I just want to emphasize that you really need to have a mindset shift when you start thinking about where am I going to find profitable shoes, especially depending on the type of sourcing background that you might have. So for some of you, you might not have done a lot of retail or online arbitrage in the past. You might be coming from a background of mostly doing thrifting or going to garage sales to look for your inventory. And so you're going to need to shift your game plan if that's the case, because you can't sell used shoes on Amazon. So you're not really going to be able to find much worth selling at thrift stores or garage sales if that's what you're used to. Those just aren't the place to find new shoes. You're going to be looking for new shoes, absolutely new condition, never worn, and they need to be in their boxes with the UPC. For the most part, there's some exceptions to that, but for the most part, you're looking for brand new shoes, never worn, in branded boxes with a UPC that you can list them on Amazon. And so if that's been your background, thrifting, garage selling, not much RA and OA, you're going to really need to think outside of what you've been doing for sourcing if you're wanting to look for shoes. And the same goes if you've done retail arbitrage and online arbitrage in the past. You also might need to think outside of, shift your mindset about where you're going to find shoes, because the stores that you've been sourcing at might not be good places to find shoes. They might be great for other categories, but not so great for shoes. And were you going to say something?
Yeah, are you saying that we should think outside of the shoebox?
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. How long are you waiting to say that?
So long.
Sorry. Okay, where was I? So, back to retail arbitrage. I know for me, before I started selling shoes, I was doing a mix of retail and online arbitrage. And so when I got ungated in shoes, I thought, I'm going to go out. I see people posting all the time on Facebook. I just got 6 cartloads full of shoes at such and such store, TJ Maxx or whatever. And I thought, okay, we've got TJ Maxx around here. I'm going to go and just start scanning and see what I can find. Surely I can get 1 cartload if everybody else is getting 6. But I tell you what, I did not find a single shoe. And I was really frustrated, and I didn't know what to do. So I tried OA instead, and I've had a lot of great success. So, everyone is different, and everyone really has their own niche when it comes to stores that they like, and their own niche when it comes to RA versus OA. So the myth is that it's hard to find those shoes. The truth is there are ways to make sourcing shoes easier, and there are tons of profitable shoes to sell on Amazon. I know for us, we've made great use of buying shoe deal lists to get those OA leads. We have subscribed to a couple of different lists in the past, and that's been the great majority of our shoe buys. We've also used OA X-ray to find shoes. I've scanned online sites using OA X-ray to find shoes to resell, and now we're starting to kind of learn how to work with I have a VA who's working with me to use tactical arbitrage to find shoes also online. For people who do RA, there's ways to streamline that process as well. You can go out there and scan shoes and find great stuff, and if you've got a lot of stores nearby and you kind of are in tune with the clearance process and the sale process at those stores, then you can get out there and scan and find some great stuff. Or you could join a BOLO group of some sort. There's groups and lists that you can buy into that give leads based on your location, based on certain retail stores, and they point you in the right direction. So, okay, OA is online arbitrage and RA is retail arbitrage. So one type is retail arbitrage is when you go out into stores in your area and you're buying stuff in person. Online arbitrage is when you're doing everything through online stores. You can stay at home or shop from Starbucks, whatever, and just buy everything online and have it sent to you or to a prep center. So another question kind of along this same myth, going along with how hard it can be to find shoes, we get a question a lot about brand restrictions and how hard it is to find shoes that aren't restricted. And It's true. There are brand restrictions, and especially, starting, when was it, last summer, like around August 2016, something like that. There was, a lot more brand restrictions started coming out, not just in shoes, but in other categories as well. And so a lot of people kind of get this mindset of, oh, all the good brands of shoes are restricted. There are no shoes to find and sell that aren't restricted. And it's true. There are restrictions, and it's really frustrating when you find a pair of shoes and you get excited, and then you look and oh, I'm restricted. I can't sell that.
Mm-hmm.
That's frustrating. But it's just not the case that all of the good brands are restricted. That's nonsense. There's tons of brands that are not restricted, that are super profitable. And it's just a matter of finding them. It's just a matter of, sorting through the ones that you might come across that are restricted until you find the ones that aren't. And, too, there can be restrictions that come at any time. If you're not restricted now, you could be restricted later. But there's always the possibility of being grandfathered in on a brand that you've sold in the past. I know that's been the case for us because we were selling shoes, in the last year and a half. There's some brands that people are restricted in that we're not because we were grandfathered in. And so our advice is get engaged in shoes, find some of these unrestricted brands, and start selling those shoes now so that you could possibly be grandfathered in if things do change in the future. Just sell a few pairs of different brands just to get your foot in the door on those brands for in the future. There's no guarantees of any of that, but that's just an idea I want to throw out there, that there are ways to overcome some of these things that people say all the time are so difficult. And we just want to keep coming back to mindset. If you have the mindset that it's too hard, the shoes category is closed off to me, then you're not going to go very far. But if you look for the ways that other sellers might possibly be exaggerating the truth or might be overstating some of the issues, I'm sure you've encountered that. Sometimes, the sky is falling type attitude when it's like, no, it's really not. So just start shifting your mindset and start evaluating these things for yourself. Find some solutions and, work things out so that you can see what kind of profits you would be able to make in this category. Okay, so let's move on to myth number 3. And that is that shoe returns are too high. It is not worth it to sell shoes on Amazon. And I said we get a lot of emails and questions about brand restrictions, but this myth right here is even bigger question that we get. Shoe returns. We get so many emails, so many comments about, oh, the returns are awful. You shouldn't sell shoes because you're just not ever going to make any money because people just return the shoes. The fees are going to kill you. The return fees are going to kill you. It's just so much worse than in other categories. But again, I just want to keep pointing you back to dig a little deeper into that statement. Don't just take it completely at face value. Dig a little deeper and see what's going on, and you're going to find out the truth. And the truth is that the number of returns are higher in shoes than in other categories, but the number of sellable returns is also higher. So what does that even mean? So if you look at the number of pairs of shoes that we get returned compared to the number of toys that we get returned or the number of home and kitchen items, yes, there is a higher percentage of returns that we get in shoes. The difference is when somebody returns a pair of shoes, typically, not all the time, but I would say, 95% of the time?
Possibly even more, 96, 97, but yeah, pretty much 96.
Yeah, so like a really high percentage of the time, they're trying on the pair of shoes and they think they don't fit, I don't like this color, there's something about them that they don't like, and they send them right back. And those shoes are still new. They've been tried on, they've been put back in their original box, they've been sent back to Amazon, and the Amazon warehouse worker sees them and sees that they're still new and puts them back in our inventory. And they're, pretty much almost immediately available for sale again. So you have to look at the overall sell-through rate of those shoes. Yes, the number of returns are higher, but I'm still selling those shoes eventually. I'm selling them new on Amazon still.
Yeah, and I would say that, I mean, it makes sense that there's more returns for shoes because of the whole, people trying it on and not fitting or whatever. But yeah, I love the fact that the shoes are sent back to a warehouse that specifically stores shoes. Those Amazon warehouse workers are trained to know, how to make the shoes look like they're in new condition again. If something's been tried on before, obviously they've been laced up or whatever if they're tennis shoes. But yeah, make sure that the tissue's right with the shoe box, and they make sure that it's sellable again. And then sometime soon after, a happy customer buys it and decides to keep it.
Yeah. And again, comparing our returns in shoes to returns in other categories, when we get a toy returned, a lot of the time it's broken or the package has been opened and it's in pieces returned to us, not assembled anymore. Or a home and, we've had home and kitchen items that are sent back used, somebody's cooked in it or whatever. And those can't be sold as new then at that point. Those then either go in the garage sale pile or the trash, honestly. Or, possibly if the damage is not too bad, we can put it on eBay. But those aren't going to, the majority of those types of returns, we can't even sell on Amazon. And so, in general, the returns in shoes are a lot better for us as far as sellable returns than other categories. And there are times when we have to, the warehouse worker will still mark the shoe as customer damaged or even defective. We've gotten that before. I don't know how shoes can be defective unless like they're falling apart. But we've gotten shoes that are marked that way by the warehouse worker, and we, submit create a removal order. We have them sent back to us so that we can inspect them, and I get it back, and it's still wrapped with our stretch wrap. The shoes weren't even open, so I don't know how they're marked as customer damaged or whatever. And so in those cases, we take pictures, document everything, and submit a ticket to prove that, it wasn't defective if that was the case. But anyway, in those cases, shoes are still new. We just put them in our next shipment and send them right back in. And so the key with this is, the thing is, you do get charged for a return on shoes. I think it's like $4 or $5 in general for shoes. There's a return fee. So what you're having to do is make sure that you're sourcing shoes where your ROI is going to be high enough and your profit margin is going to be high enough so that if you do get a return and you have to swallow that $4 or $5, you're not going to lose all your profit. That just means you're looking for shoes to sell that are more, your profit's going to be more than $5 to $10 on those shoes. You're looking for profit of $20, $30, $40 or more. And that's another mindset shift. If you're used to selling grocery or books, toys, things where you're used to having a margin of like $3 to $5 or $7, you can't do that in shoes, or you're not going to be able to make any profit if you get those returns. And really, it's something, the further along you get in your business, when you start scaling your business, you do need to be taking returns into consideration, no matter what category you're in, and including that in part of your buy cost, that you're going to have a certain number of returns. So you need to just start shifting your mindset to, there are going to be returns. I need to take that into account in my numbers. So let's see. Basically, just if you're willing to make these types of mindset shifts and not get caught up in the things about the shoes category that's different or even more difficult, because it is more difficult than other categories, but if you're willing to make that mindset shift and spend the time, experiment a little, learn by trial and error in some respects, you're going to be able to find that there's a lot of profit potential in shoes. So we've covered these 3 myths, and these are all problems that on the surface might hold you back. But if you dig deeper and look at the truth, we have found that shoes have been a fantastic addition to our FBA inventory. They have raised our average selling price, they've raised our overall disbursements, and they've given us that steady inventory throughout the year, not just at Q4, and that was a big deal for us. So that wraps up the 3 myths. I'm going to hand the presentation back over to Stephen at this point.
So one of the last things I want to talk about before we get into Q&A and stuff is why you should consider adding shoes to your Amazon business. I want to talk about the 4 biggest reasons why we added shoes to our Amazon business, and maybe some of these will get you thinking about why maybe you should add shoes to your Amazon business. So The first one is to diversify your inventory. Being able to add a new category and selling more items just kind of mixes things up a lot, and be able to spread out to other categories. It gives you another category to learn, another category to experience, and be able to really get some more balance to your Amazon inventory. If you are all books or all toys or mostly grocery items or whatever, then there's certain types of ebb and flow and waves that you can ride to be able to do your best, but it's not always consistently the same. But the more categories that you have, the more that items that you sell on Amazon, a lot of those even out. Like I said before in the introduction, if we were completely a toy company and selling mostly toys, right the week before Christmas, the week after Christmas, we would have had almost zero sales if it weren't for shoes and a handful of other categories.
And that's been the case in years past. And
Yes.
that's part of why we did this, is because in the past things just came to a screeching halt for us, and then we just had to get back out there and get at it again, looking for more stuff.
Exactly. So being able to diversify your inventory was big for us. Second reason, fewer competitors. Like talking about before, with this being a gated category, and there's so many people that assume that the ungating process is hard and difficult that they don't even take the time to look into it. There's fewer competitors that are out there, and it's something that we like. We're able to find shoes where there's opportunities where there's only one or two other sellers. Sometimes we find shoe sizes and variations that have nobody selling that particular size and variation. We get to be the only one selling it. So that's, it's just awesome when you kind of also compare yourself to a bookseller. There's like hundreds of people selling the same book, or a toy seller with 100 people selling the same toy. You can find a lot of opportunities with shoes where there's just a small number of competition that you have to deal with, and so that creates more opportunities for sales.
Yeah, just back on that, fewer competitors. Like you were saying, a toy could easily have 50 to 100 sellers on it. When I see a shoe that has, 5 sellers on a variation, I start to think, oh, that's got a lot of competition. That's what we mean when we say there's fewer competitors. It's, drastically fewer competitors.
Yeah. The number 3 reason is higher ASP. ASP is your average selling price, and that's a big deal too. I was actually recorded a video earlier today that we're putting on YouTube, but it's about 2 different people. Say there's a guy named Bob, and he is selling 10 items for $10 each. Well, he's making $100 in sales, but he's having to pay the sales fees, his commissions and FBA fees 10 different times. Well, there's also Sally. Sally is selling 1 item for $100. So they both have $100 in sales, but Sally's only getting charged the commissions and the FBA fees 1 time. So Sally's coming home with a bigger paycheck. She's getting more profits, even though the Bob, who's selling 10 items for $10, is selling more of a quantity. The quality of the sales that Sally's getting by selling a $100 item is so much better in the long run. So when you increase your average selling price, you're able to save money. You're able to save costs when it comes to prepping or taking stickers off or anything like that, and it really helps your business and increases your disbursements. I mean, when you have a higher average selling price, you can increase your disbursement. And so when you're selling shoes, we often sell $100 shoes. I think our average selling price when it comes to shoes is about 75.
70 something.
Yeah. So that has increased our average selling price overall really well. And then the 4th reason is the great ROI possibilities. I love the ROI potential when it comes to shoes. Again, which would you rather sell? Would you rather sell, a $3 item that you sell for $20, or would you rather, would you rather buy a $5 item that you sell for $20, or would you rather buy a $20 item that you sell for $100? I mean, the ROI potential is awesome. And again, that increases your disbursements, increases your profits, and your overall Amazon business. So those are the 4 reasons why we added shoes to our Amazon business, and just think that it would be awesome for you to do so too. And so what we're going to do some Q&A in just a second. There's a section in the GoToWebinar control panel that's the questions. If you haven't put your question in there yet, go ahead and do that now. And while you're doing that, I have a few things to tell you. Number one, I want to remind you of the free sales ring chart and book. If you're showing up late to this webinar or you missed the first part, I want to make sure everyone gets this. fulltimefba.com/sales rank. You get a free sales rank chart. You get it absolutely free. Once a month, I update it, and you get the latest sales rank. And you get a free ebook, Seller Central Tips, which is all about reimbursements, refunds, and how to correct other possible Amazon glitches. This is my free gift to you. And then also, in just a minute, we're also going to give away a copy of this, our brand new course, The Reseller's Guide to Selling Shoes. Kick up your profits with new shoes via Amazon FBA. It's a combination ebook of over 100 pages, a video course with over 4.5 hours of content. We've got 11 bonus modules. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And there's a 60-day money-back guarantee. Plenty of time to read the book or watch the videos. There's the same content in both the book and the videos, so you can choose how you'd rather learn. If you want to read a book with the pictures, there's that option, or if you want to watch the videos, you can choose that option. And you can find this at fulltimefba.com/selling shoes. And it's something that we're really excited about. We think can help you out a whole lot. And if you want to use a coupon code, you can use the coupon code SHOES10, and that will save you $10 off of the cost of the course. Now, before I give away a copy to a lucky attendee right now, I want to tell you a little bit about the bonuses. We got some PDF bonuses and some video bonuses. The first PDF bonus is a checklist of questions to ask yourself before you start to buy shoes. This is when you're just starting out and you're buying shoes. You want to make sure that you answer these 9 critical questions that you need to ask before you head out on your first shoe sourcing trip, and they're going to help you know if you're ready to be able to take the plunge into sourcing shoes on Amazon. The second freebie here is a shoe buying parameter worksheet. This is 25 questions to consider when coming up with the parameters of the shoes that you want to purchase to sell on Amazon. And it's a worksheet that's going to help you make better decisions when it comes to sourcing.
And that, I just want to say about these worksheets, these are things that I wish I had had whenever I first got started. I had to learn a lot by trial and error, asking questions in groups and talking to other sellers. And so I really hope that these are very helpful for you. The shoe buying parameters worksheet, this is a set of parameters that I personally sit down and think through and use when I'm making decisions when I'm buying shoes every day. I'm not giving you on this worksheet, this is the ROI that I use and this is the dollar amounts that I look for, the number of reviews or whatever. I'm not giving you that. My parameters, I'm giving you a set of questions to ask yourself. It's a worksheet that you fill out where you decide based on your budget, based on your comfort level, based on your experience and knowledge, how are you going to buy shoes. And it's something that can change over time, and so you can print out multiple copies of it to use at different periods.
Yeah, so it's like, what sizes you're comfortable with and things like that. 25 different things to think about. It'll help you make a better, well-rounded decision. Another freebie is our tools for sourcing shoes. There's a lot of different tools people use. These are the ones that we use. Some of them are free tools, some of them are paid tools, but we want to make sure that you have the shoe sourcing toolbox that you need to be able to save time by using these tools and make better decisions.
And it's only things that we actually use. There's other tools that you can use, but they're not the ones we use. And so we get a lot of questions about, what is this program or how do you use that program? These are the ones that I have found to be most useful in my own sourcing.
Yep. Another PDF that we have is how to normalize a shoe listing. Rebecca, tell them what that means.
Basically, to normalize the listing is if there's any type, because you've got child-parent variations on shoe listings where you have different colors, different sizes listed on one page, there can be different problems with the product page that come up when you've got different sellers adding different variations, and so including Amazon. Amazon also makes mistakes. So anyway, it's normalizing a shoe listing is when you talk with Seller Central to get those problems straightened out.
That's good. Another freebie for you, the bonus PDF inspection and prepping checklist. Amazon has their guidelines and rules when it comes to making sure that shoes are prepped well and that new shoes are actually in new conditions. This is going to help you make sure that your shoes are ready, or Amazon ready, and ready for your customer. And then the last PDF bonus is about increasing your Amazon FBA shoe sales with multi-channel fulfillment on eBay. Some people might not know, but there's an opportunity to also list your Amazon inventory on eBay and get even more eyes, even more customers to see your shoes that you're trying to sell. And there's really awesome program out there that for a fair fee will link your eBay account with your Amazon account so that both your shoes are selling on Amazon, they're selling on eBay. If they sell on eBay, it removes it from your Amazon inventory. If it sells on Amazon, it removes it automatically from your eBay inventory. And then if it sells on eBay, it contacts Amazon and automatically has it shipped to your eBay customer from Amazon warehouse. It's awesome. That's a PDF walking you through that. So those are the PDF bonuses. Let's talk about the video bonuses. There's a bonus about how to find the ASIN for a shoe variation. The parent ASIN and the child ASIN are different, and there's a different ASIN for every single child, and so you want to make sure that you have the right one that matches your size.
And a child is just the color size. So like a black size 8 is one child, a black size 8.5 is another child.
Yep, and there's a ton of them. So this is helping you find those ASINs so that you can list them correctly or do other research on Amazon or using other tools to be able to make good decisions. Another video bonus is a faster way to find ASINs for out-of-stock shoe variations in Inventory Lab. A lot of you know, maybe some of you don't, that if an item is out of stock on Amazon, Amazon suppresses that product page and doesn't make it clickable. Amazon does not want a customer to find an item out of stock. And so it can be kind of hard to find that. Well, here's a quick and easy way to use Inventory Lab to be able to find those out-of-stock ASINs. Another freebie is a video about how to use an app called How Many to be able to look at variations and compare prices and make buying decisions when it comes to the different variations. Some sizes and colors sell better than other sizes and colors, and this can help you that, and it'll also help you know about your competitors' inventory stock levels. Another freebie bonus is how to add a variation to a shoe listing. So say you've got a black size 8, but there's not a black size 8 option out there. Here's how you can add that variation to your shoe listing using Add a Product in Seller Central. We walk you through that step by step in this video. And then the last bonus for video, a way to optimize your eBay listings when importing them from Amazon with Joe Lister. Joe Lister is a third-party program that connects Amazon and eBay so that it's multi-channel fulfillment. But the way that Joe Lister imports your Amazon listings is not the best. It doesn't. There's a way to improve the eBay listings, and this is a walkthrough of how to improve and optimize your eBay listings so you have the right customer finding your item, your shoes that you're wanting to sell. So those are just the bonuses, and that's not counting all the content in the 100-page ebook, 4.5 hours of video content, and there's a 60-day money-back guarantee. So you can get that now, fulltimefba.com/selling shoes, and you can use the coupon code SHOES10 to save $10. So right before we get into Q&A, let's give away a copy of this course. I'm going to go to the attendees. We have 180 people here right now. Rebecca, would you give me a number between 1 and 180?
Let's see, 28.
28. All right. So let's see. I'm going to start counting, and we'll find the winner. So, okay, Terry Gilbert is the winner of a copy of the Reseller's Guide to Selling Shoes. Congratulations, Terry. Send me a Facebook message. Let me know. You can find me at facebook.com. I don't know if there's a shortcut for my personal Facebook
Stephen
page.
Smotherman.
Yeah, just search me, Stephen Smotherman. There's only a handful of us in the world. But find me, Stephen Smotherman, send me a Facebook message, and I will get you access to this course. So let's get into some questions. I've seen you do we've got a lot of questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for asking these questions. We're going to try to do our best to answer as many of these as we can. I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to let Rebecca answer some of these. I'm actually going to turn this camera back on so you can see us again. So hello, everybody. It's good to see you again. So All right. Oh, this is cool.
Are we still on there?
Yes, we're still on there.
Okay.
If you, yeah, you can
It's
still.
not on our screen, but
Yes, their light's on right there, so that's
okay.
showing us that it's on. So that's good. Let's see. I'm gonna get some questions here. Go through here. I'm going through all the yeses. I did see somebody post a comment that said, "Yay! I just got engaged in shoes during the webinars. Thank you so much."
That's fun.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. All right. So Mary says, my biggest concern at this time is buying shoes that Amazon is no longer on the listing, and then by the time I get my shoes and Amazon's back on the listing. Are you buying shoes that Amazon has never sold?
Okay, so I look for shoes that Amazon has never sold, definitely. And I will also buy shoes. I don't compete with Amazon when it comes to shoes. Some sellers do. I can't figure out when they share the buy box and when they don't share the buy box. It seems kind of just iffy to me to figure that out. You know, in other categories, I know when I can get the buy box. But in shoes, it's just too much of a risk. So I look for shoes that Amazon is out of stock on, and whether that means they've never sold them or that they've sold them in the past and they've been out of stock for a very long time. I don't like to buy shoes where Amazon's in and out of stock necessarily unless it's super low rank. And, you know, the way that you can tell that is the Keepa extension. I do all OA. You know, if you're doing RA, you can do the same thing. You can use Keepa when you're sourcing, but I put the Keepa Chrome extension right there on my product page, and I can very easily look to see if a variation of a shoe, if Amazon's ever been in stock, and you can also from that Keepa graph tell, you know, some other good information about pricing history and how long that shoe's been available on Amazon, and those are all things that you can, you know, take into account when you're making your sourcing decision. But definitely look at Keepa to find out about Amazon's stock history on shoes.
Yeah, we love Keepa a lot, and I can talk about it for a long time, but we'll keep moving on. So Pamela says, I've started sourcing shoes, and I'm finding that a lot of stores are going to shoes with no boxes. How do you handle sending them to Amazon?
Okay, shoes with no boxes. So it really depends on the type of shoes. If you're talking about going to like a second chance type store like a TJ Maxx or something, and you're finding shoes that don't have their original boxes, I stay away from those. Really, you need to, there are some shoes that you can send in poly bags. You have to kind of look back to what do the Amazon guidelines say, and they say that you should send in shoes without any material of the shoe. It all has to be covered up either in a box with the lid secured or in a poly bag. Nothing can be exposed from that shoe. And so you need to, at that point, decide, well, Amazon's not clear. So if the shoes don't have a box, I can just stick them in a poly bag, right? But think about, you know, Amazon is super customer centric. That's what everything is on Amazon. It comes back to the customer. So would a customer like to receive a certain pair of shoes in a poly bag if they order them off of Amazon? That's the kind of question you need to be asking before you start considering whether you would buy a pair of shoes without the box. And there are some shoes, they don't come with a box. You know, Crocs, flip-flops, certain types of slippers, any type of shoe that you're going to go into a store and find hanging on a rack instead of in a shoebox on a shelf. Those are the types of shoes that I don't have a problem sending them into Amazon in a poly bag because they don't have boxes. There's other types of shoes that I've received that the box is damaged and I put them in a poly bag, but I'm talking low-end shoes, kids shoes, like some types of kids sneakers. You know, the box is not a big deal. But if you're talking higher-end shoes, name brand shoes, the customer is not going to be happy receiving it without a box. That's part of the experience, is getting the nice box with that name brand on it and opening it up and finding the name brand tissue paper wrapping up the shoe. And some people keep their shoe boxes, you know, they keep their shoes in their shoe box, or they keep the shoe boxes stacked up in their closet or wherever, and that's part of the deal for them when they buy shoes, and so they would not be happy. And, you know, they're not going to be a repeat customer for Amazon. It's going to give them a negative buying experience. They're going to leave you negative feedback potentially. You could get an inauthentic claim. if you're sending in a pair of shoes and there's no shoebox and no UPC attached to it, some people might just jump to the conclusion, oh, these shoes are counterfeit. And so you just don't want to risk that. So, certain types of shoes, yes, I would send without a shoebox. All shoes, no. I would not ship any shoe without a shoebox.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Gail, Karen, and a handful of other people are asking, how do you ship shoe boxes to Amazon so that the lid stays closed?
Okay, so Amazon, in their guidelines, they say that the lid needs to be secured, but not with any type of adhesive tape. So there's a couple of different things you can do. Some people poly bag the shoe boxes. So, you put your shoe box in a poly bag and that lid's not going to come off. And that, to me, there are some shoes that I've done that with before, but it just depends on, if it's like a really pricey shoe and I don't want that shoe box to get damaged somehow, I might do that. But usually I don't do that. I feel like that's kind of overkill. That can get pricey and time consuming. But you can use a thick rubber band. I know I do a lot of online ordering, and a lot of my shoes come with a thick rubber band. You don't want to use just thin rubber bands that you get out of your desk drawer. Those are going to snap. The Amazon warehouses aren't climate controlled. UPS trucks are not climate controlled, and so if those get really hot, they're going to break. And over time, they get dried out and break. And so you want to make sure you're getting a thick, sturdy band. The other thing that we use is stretch wrap, and can I just grab it over there?
Yeah.
You brought back?
You put that shoe box right there.
Oh yeah, here's a shoe box that we had returned too. So we use this kind of stretch wrap, like we've used it when we're moving before, and it just is this cling wrap that comes.
There we go.
Close enough. And you just wrap a couple of rows around, and tighten it up a little bit, and that keeps the lid on, and then the customer can just cut it off, and it's secure, but it's not going to damage the shoebox. You can't use any type of tape that if it has to be opened. I mean, the warehouse workers might need to inspect it or something. I don't know. You don't want them to tear up their box when they're opening the shoebox with tape, so that's not allowed.
Yeah, again, because like you said before, a lot of people like the shoe boxes and like to keep the shoe boxes, and the tape will just mess that up.
Right.
A lot. Got another question from Francine. When I scan shoes at the store, it comes up as not found for the most part. How do you handle that?
I don't scan shoes at the store.
Yeah, I mean.
That was the problem I had too. I scanned and scanned and scanned, and they were all not found. And so that means that there's not a listing. And so again, for me, it was all about saving time. At that point, I was like, okay, I'm not finding anything. I know other people are finding tons of stuff. How do I do it? So for me, I signed up for subscription lists. And, you could spend the time to scan, and you will find shoes. If you're in the right stores and you're looking, in the right sections, and you're learning different brands, that's the other thing. For me, it was partly about having to learn a whole new set of brands and styles. When I first started selling on Amazon, we were mostly doing toys. I really liked selling books because I know books really well, and toys was a hard thing for me at first because, I didn't know what was popular with kids, but over time I got to know that, and it's the same with shoes. Over time you'll get to know that. I'm not even going to bother scanning because I know it's not going to be on Amazon. And honestly, that's like I was saying earlier, to me, the time that I saved by subscribing to a list, or if you're doing RA, there's groups that you can join that focus on certain stores, and they'll share deals that are available in those stores for a price, or you can find some friends to collaborate with, and y'all can share leads. To me, that's the key to saving some time on that, because otherwise, you do just have to scan until you find something.
Yeah, and another option would be sometimes there's stores that put their own barcodes over the original barcodes, and so sometimes if you try to scan those, they're not going to work because they're not the UPC. And so another option would be to try to do a keyword search on whatever sourcing app you're using. So then type in the name of the brand and try to look at the size and see if there's a sticker on the box that says what the style is, and try to find it that way. It takes longer But if you're not finding any of it that way, that's another option that you can try to do. So another question here, do you charge a restocking fee for customers who change their mind with returns? I don't actually believe that that's an option.
I don't think it is either.
Yeah, I know with eBay, you can there's going to be a restocking fee that you can choose.
I mean, I guess if you're doing merchant fulfill,
yeah.
Is that an option with that? I don't know.
I'm not sure. We don't merchant fulfill. Yeah, we do
shoes.
FBA for all of it. And so yeah, that's just I don't think there's an option. And plus, even if there was an option, I don't think I would choose to do that because you're going to charge a customer to return it. Amazon has free returns.
And they have those free returns for a reason.
Right.
Like, who wants to have to pay to return a pair of shoes that don't fit? They're not going to buy shoes online if that's the case. That's why shoes are so popular to buy online, because you can buy 3 pairs, try them all on, send 2 back. It kind of stinks for the sellers that are then having to eat some of that cost. But again, that goes back to, if you're doing your sourcing the correct way, you're building that into your ROI and into your profit, and it's not going to hurt that much.
Yeah, and another thing to think about when it comes to the return policy on Amazon, Amazon's return policy is so awesome for customers, they end up buying more.
Right.
So it stings us as sellers, but we're actually getting more sales because of that return policy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cody asked, what's the suggested amount of money needed to get started in shoes to get inventory to send to Amazon?
That's a good question, and that's one that, it depends a lot on what your expectations are as far as profits go. And I would say we didn't start sourcing shoes until we had an amount of capital that we could set aside and dedicate to shoes. There's with the higher ASP, the average selling price, there also is a higher buy cost with shoes. And so if you're used to thrifting or even doing RA and OA where you're getting clearance stuff that's, $10, $15 or less, you're used to spending $5 for your buy cost on an item, then, that's another mindset shift, that shoes, a lot of times, you're going to have $20, $30, $40, even $50 for your buy cost on the shoes. And so in order to be able to ramp up your inventory, you need to have a certain amount of capital set aside that you're going to be able to dedicate to shoes. And, for every seller, that amount could be different. I know I wouldn't want to start out with like $50 because that's one pair of shoes, And so whereas you could say, you could start a thrifting business with $50 and snowball that $50 pretty quickly to be several $100s to reinvest in inventory, you're going to want several $100s at the least to start with shoes, if not, $1,000 that you can invest in inventory and be willing to wait to get that money back. That's the other thing. Some shoes really can be long tail because you're waiting for somebody not just to come along who likes that color and that style and that brand, but who wears that size that you've got available. So you need to have the mindset that it could take a little bit longer to sell the shoes, and you need to be willing to have that inventory or that capital tied up for a while until you get the sale. I hope that answered the question, but it's hard to say an exact amount, but I would say that you do need to have several hundred, if not $1,000 or more to start off with buying inventory.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good start. Absolutely. Someone asked, what are the popular sizes when it comes to shoes?
Yeah, that really depends. I feel bad because that's how I answer so many questions about shoes. It depends. But, every seller has a different opinion about that. But I would say, I know for us, I tend to buy in women's shoes 7, 8, 9. And, the half sizes too, 7.5, 8.5, sometimes 9.5. I would say those are the popular, common sizes, average sizes for women. And then for men, I would say like 9, 10, 11. But other sellers might say differently. And so that's just kind of my take on what the popular sizes are. But other people might be like, why are you not buying size 12 in men's? I don't know.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying I don't buy it. I'm just saying I buy less of that.
Yeah, and that's why we have the worksheet for you about the the sourcing parameters so that you can kind of come up with your own what works best for you, because you might start seeing that you have success buying men's size 12 shoes, and you're like, I want to keep doing this, and so that's we kind of help walk you through that in the course. I actually got an email from someone who said they couldn't make the webinar live, from William. He said, what's your experience and advice regarding use of a prep service for online arbitrage purchases of shoes? What kind of advice would you give when dealing with a prep service where you're sending shoes to someone else to deal with?
That's actually something that we've just gotten into in the last couple of months. So up until the first of this year, we were receiving all of our shoes shipped here to our house, and we were processing them all. We had a helper that came in that we paid to come in and help us process the shoes, and then we would list them and ship them off ourselves from here. And just with different stuff that's going on with our business and family and different things, we decided, it's time for us to move to a prep service. If we're doing online arbitrage, we can send them directly from our house. Instead of bringing them to our house, send them directly to the prep center and have them do that. And so again, this has only been since the first of the year, but I've loved it. It's been amazing.
It has.
I mean, I enjoyed getting the shoes here. It's fun getting this big shipment in and seeing them all piled up and sending them off. And, in a lot of ways, it's the prep work is not that bad, especially if you have somebody helping you do it. But it's been a game changer for us to have them sent to the prep center. And, I would just say, if you're going to use a prep center, a lot of people get all worked up over, I got to find a prep center in a tax-free state or whatever. And that's a consideration. But I think even bigger consideration, if you're trying to find a prep center, is to find one where you can have a good working relationship with them, where you can ask questions and you can clearly communicate your expectations, they can clearly communicate theirs, and that you can have that communication back and forth, because this is somebody you're trusting with your account, your Amazon account. They're going to have access to things in your account. They're going to be inspecting your inventory for you. You need to know, do they have processes for shoe inventory? If not, you need to make sure that you're giving them your inspection and prepping processes that you would expect. And so
you can give them a copy of that PDF file.
Right.
That's part of the bonus package.
The bonus. But the prep center that we're working with, they're so experienced, and they're amazing. And so we just were like, hey, how do you process shoes? And they took us through the process, and it's like, okay, great, that's thorough.
Yeah, they're kind of even more thorough than we were.
Well, I don't know if they're more thorough than we were, but they're very thorough in how they document everything, and that's super important. So that's what I would say about using a prep center. It's if you are able to afford that, and again, build that into your buy cost. It's going to cost you what, $1.50 per shoe. Mm-hmm. On top of your other costs, you need to just work that into your buy cost and your ROI. And to me, the time that we've saved has been really worth it. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been really.
And we don't have all these boxes stacked up around our house now. The kids used to have a chore or they would get paid extra money to come in and tear up the boxes for us and stack them all up neatly. So they're kind of out of that job now, but we'll find other things for them to do.
We have plenty of stuff for them to do. Sarah asks, is there any worry about being suspended as an Amazon seller because of using arbitrage and not having receipts that Amazon accepts? And this is something that I've had a lot of people asking about, not even with shoes, but just with any type of retail or online arbitrage aspects. I know sometime last year there was a lot of blog posts and Facebook posts and people being really scared about Amazon suspending sellers who were not able to prove that their products that they purchased were that they were authentic. They were getting counterfeit claims and inauthentic claims. And so, but from what I've learned and from my conversations with people who help reinstate people, it seems like Amazon is still, accepting retail arbitrage receipts, online arbitrage receipts as a paper trail back to the original source. So if you're, sourcing from, an online store, if you're sourcing from a retail store, you want to make sure that the receipts have the shoe information on it. I know there's some stores that will just say shoes, $24, Well, you want to make sure that you take a picture of that receipt with the shoes that are from that store so that it's connected, just whatever to do to make sure that there's a paper trail.
And not just with the UPC also.
Right.
That's what you mean when you say like
Right.
connecting that shoe, because you need the name of the shoe, you need the UPC. Some stores have an in-store code on their receipts instead of the UPC, and so if you don't have an invoice and you only have a receipt, you want to make sure that you're documenting somehow that the UPC of that shoe is connected to that receipt.
Yeah, and so we've not had any type of worries about counterfeit or inauthentic claims, and we keep all of our receipts, we keep all of our packing slips when stuff is dropped off at the house. Our prep center keeps packing slips for all the things that are delivered there. So there's multiple paper trails back to the original company. Someone asked, how do you deal with online arbitrage damaged boxes? Like it comes in the mail and the box is damaged, and how do you deal with that?
It depends on where it came from. If it's easy for me to return it, I have returned shoes and gotten my money back. I've either had to call in and initiate get a return label to send it back, or if there's a store in our area, I have taken them back into the store. There's some that, like we were saying before, depending on the type of shoe, if it's, if I get a kid's pair of sneakers that I'm going to sell for $30, I might consider just sending those in a poly bag because the shoebox isn't that big of a deal. If it's a damaged shoebox for a $150 pair of boots, I'm not going to send those in a poly bag. It stinks, that happens sometimes, but if it's not feasible to get the return or exchange them or whatever, and you can't send them in a poly bag, that's why we recommend keeping an eBay seller account in good standing so that you can put those on eBay either as not having the box or detailed condition note saying, there is a box, but it's got a hole in it or it's crushed or whatever.
Yeah, that's what we do. Chaz says, I hear shoes are long tail items. Does it make business sense to spend $500 and then wait for shoes to eventually sell?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
it is.
Yeah, and that's part of the process is that, like I was saying earlier at the beginning, they are long tail, and there are some shoes that aren't going to sell for months, and that was frustrating to me when I first got into it because for some reason, I missed that memo when I first started selling shoes, and I thought I was going to send in shoes and get these big profits in the next 2 weeks, and that didn't happen, and I was like, what did I do wrong? And it took, the first couple of weeks worth of shoes that I bought, it took 6 months for some of those shoes to sell. And yeah, that's a lot of capital to tie up. If you spend $500 in a week on shoes and they're not going to sell for 6 months, that's why I recommend making sure that you've got, that capital set aside to invest in shoes, and then you've got other capital that you're going to invest in stuff that is going to be fast turning. But shoes don't have to be completely long tail. I bought shoes a week and a half ago that I sent to the warehouse last week, and they've already sold for 100% ROI, $100 pair of shoes. And that's fast turn. And it's just a matter of practice, finding out which brands will do that, which types of variations will do that, which sizes, which colors, all those different things that go into all of the factors that work together. It's possible to do it. It takes time. It's a learning curve for sure, but yeah, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Gail asked, do you ever get to the point where you create your own product pages for shoes that are not on Amazon?
I haven't done that. I've added a variation. If I come across some shoes and I found the 7.5 in the brown, but for some reason that variation's not on the product page, I will add that, and that's one of the bonuses. It's, if you've ever created a listing before, it's part of that process. It's pretty similar to do that on the add a product page on Seller Central, but I personally have never created my own brand new from scratch listing for shoes because I'm not saying I wouldn't. I would have to find the right shoes to do that for. it's a lot of work to go in and add all of the variations, and you're not going to get traction in sales in a pair of shoes, and you're not going to get the low sales rank and show up in the searches unless you have, a couple of colors and multiple size variations. And so if you find a pair of shoes and all you can find are black in 3 sizes of that shoe, you're not ever going to get any traction. You're not going to get anybody finding those shoes to buy them with just those 3 variations available. But if you can find a good source for black, brown, and white of a shoe, and you can get size 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of all of those, it might be worth it. You just really have to look at how much time it takes to do it and the effort that's involved. Is it worth it for those profits? And realistically, if you're looking at a retail or online source, you're not going to find it would be really hard to find that kind of listing that somebody else hasn't already created. It's possible, but I haven't done it.
Yeah. Lindsay asks if we've ever had any success selling odd-sized shoes.
What do you mean odd size?
I guess very large or very small.
Oh, like the outlier type sizes? Yeah. We have. I don't specialize in that. Some sellers say that they love to sell, size 5 women's shoes or size 12 women's shoes or size, 14 or 15 men's shoes. And you can sell them for a premium. And there's some logic behind that because, if you go to the store to buy a pair of shoes and you have feet that are not an average size, it's harder. Brick and mortar stores just don't always have those shoes in stock. And so if you are looking for those size of shoes to buy and you just get tired of always going to the store and not being able to find them, you go online and you're willing possibly to pay a premium for those shoes to save you the time and effort of driving around looking for them. So there's some logic behind that. Some sellers do that. I prefer to stick, for the most part, with more common sizes because you get faster velocity. Because if you're selling 7, 8, 9 size for women's, you're pretty much guaranteed those are going to sell pretty quickly, whereas a size 12, you're waiting for somebody to finally stumble across your listing and buy your size 12 for that extra profit. It can happen, and if you've got a low-ranking, really popular shoe, I would consider it. But if it's a less popular shoe, I would stay away from it.
That's a good answer. I'm looking over. If you're wondering what I'm looking at, I've got a screen over here that has all the questions on there, and I'm going through. And there's some questions that have been asked a lot. A lot of you have been asking if we purchase shoes from wholesalers, and we've discovered it's pretty difficult to get a wholesale account for shoes unless you're a brick and mortar store. Plus, they want you to go incredibly deep on variations and sizes and stuff. And so we've not tried that. I know of a few people who found success with being able to open up wholesale orders with shoes, but we focus all on online arbitrage. But I do know of some 6-figure shoe sellers that have focused all on retail arbitrage. And so it is possible out there. And most likely you're going to find one or the other, retail arbitrage or online arbitrage, that you connect more with and you find more success with. And so when you start to figure that out, go with it and keep going after that. Someone asked, you've talked a few times about OA X-ray. Can you give a quick little thing about that, how we use OA X-ray when it comes to shoes?
So OA X-ray, basically you're going onto an online store's website, you pull up a page of shoes, and it's a Chrome extension. So you've got it installed, you're using Google Chrome as your browser, and you go to the shoe page, and you've got 20 pairs of shoes, 50 pairs of shoes on that page, and you click on OA X-ray, and it scans that page and matches it either by title or by UPC with products on Amazon, and it basically creates a spreadsheet telling you what the ROI would be at that current buy cost with the current Amazon buy box. And you can set all sorts of different filters to show you things that are only over a certain percentage of ROIs, only a certain dollar amount of profit. And is that a pretty good explanation?
I think so, yeah.
It really speeds up and automates the process of online arbitrage so that you're not having to click on every single shoe and enter every single shoe into Amazon and compare. I mean, it just creates a spreadsheet for you, scans it. It saves a ton of time.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a ton of you asking the question, where can I find lists to buy to be able to source shoes? I actually was able to just get a deal with a discount code. So if you end up purchasing the course, Reseller's Guide to Selling Shoes, by going to fulltimefba.com/selling shoes, sometime next week, I'm going to be sending out the coupon codes and information about some deals that you can get on a sourcing list. And so, be sure that you're, be looking for that next week. Because, there's some places, we right now, we just use one. And so, there's a lot more out there but we're not going to talk about ones we don't use. But we'll share that one sometime next week. Let's see, some of the other questions. So men's shoes, women's shoes, or children's shoes, what sells the best?
They all do.
Yes.
I mean, they're all selling on Amazon. It's hard to say. And again, it comes down to personal preference, and everybody finds their niche. It's hard for me to say. I've honestly never looked at our inventory to see, which, I don't know which ones I'm buying more of. I would say I probably buy more women's shoes to sell than any, but I don't know. I haven't analyzed that to see. So it really just all depends. There's different styles that are really, you need to kind of look at the shoes category as there's women's, men's, and children's, but then you've got shoes that are going to be, people are going to be looking for shoes for an event that they're going to, for work, and depending on what kind of work they do, do they need dress shoes? Do they need comfort shoes? Do they have to stand on their feet all day long? Do they need to be wearing business attire? People are looking for running shoes, cross-training shoes, tennis shoes. They're looking for hiking shoes. They're looking for hiking sandals. They're looking for snow boots. They're looking for rain boots. They're looking for Western boots. There's so many different types of styles and subcategories that go into that. And so I would say probably every single shoe seller would give you a different answer as to what sells better. Some people swear by flip-flops, and they say, oh, I sell flip-flops in December, and I sell tons of flip-flops in December, but I'm still selling them in December because people are going on cruises or whatever. I tell you, I can't find flip-flops that sell well. I can't, and so I don't sell them. But, there's other styles that I really like. I really like to sell boots. I really like to sell women's heels. I like to sell kids' sneakers. I like to sell men's dress shoes, men's running shoes. It really just depends on the week. It depends on the season. It depends on what's on sale, what's on clearance. I will say, another thing, some sellers say, that they sell flip-flops in the winter or whatever. I personally try not to sell shoes out of season. I like to sell in season. But again, there's so many factors that it's just personal preference, and it's trial and error and experimenting to get there.
Yeah. It takes time, but once you finally get a hang of it, the results are amazing. And that's why we put this course together. We want to be able to take all the things that we've learned, the mistakes that we've made, and be able to help you out by just telling you what we've learned so that you can skip those mistakes yourself. We're going to do like 5 more minutes of Q&A, and then we're going to call it a night. I think this is a really good question. Liz was asking, long-term storage fees, is it something to consider until you learn the brand, sizes, colors, and learning curve? Like the learning curve when it comes to all that.
Yeah, again, long-term storage fees, that's something that timing is important, and that's why I say I don't like to sell shoes out of season, because unless you're getting super big profit on them, you could end up having to pay a long-term storage fee. So that's one thing to consider when you're looking at, do you want to sell out of season or not? Another thing, we just had the February long-term storage fees. Well, it's smart to wait until after February 15th to send in your next big shoe shipment, because then you get pretty much you get an extra 6 months to sell those shoes. And you know, any type of shoes you're not going to want to go super deep on until you kind of get an idea. I, in general, usually will only buy 1, 2, 3 at the very most of any one variation. And you know, it's sad. Used to, you could get the 1 ASIN exemption for the long-term storage fees, and this was our first batch of long-term storage fees this past 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, where you know we were being charged even if there's just 1 ASIN, and so that was hard for us with shoes. And I learned some things, and I kind of made some notes for in the future about what types of shoes I probably won't be buying again in the future, because when I bought them I thought, oh, I've got indefinite amount of time to sell them, there's only 1 of it doesn't matter. But now that's not the case. Again, I think what it comes back to, same as with returns, is that you need to take into account potential storage fees, whether it's monthly storage fees or long-term storage fees, when you're looking at your ROI and your dollar amount of profit for each pair of shoes. So again, if you buy a pair of shoes knowing that you're only going to make $5 or $10, $15 off of it, and you get a return and you've got long-term storage fees, you know, a return would be $5 and you got long-term storage fees of $3 or whatever it might end up being, you know, you're not going to have any profit left. So that's why we say make sure that you're buying shoes where the ROI is going to be high enough that you can possibly stand. You know, we paid long-term storage fees on some of our shoes. We brought back some to find a different, you know, find somewhere else to sell them, because we didn't want to pay the fees on them. But we paid fees on some shoes, and I kid you not, February 18th, you know, we sold a pair, and I was like, I'm so glad we paid the fee on that, because now, you know, we just got $50. We paid $4 in a fee on it, but we made $50 3 days later, so it was worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're selling $100 pair of shoes and you've got a $3 long-term storage fee, $5 long-term storage fee, it's worth it just to pay the fee sometimes.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Another question: Do you need to do Amazon sponsored ads for your listings, or are the items already popular enough?
I've never done an Amazon sponsored listing for shoes. I just buy shoes that I think are going to be popular enough. That might be something that I need to look into in the future if, you know, long-term storage fees, long tail type thing is an issue, but so far I just haven't messed with it. Yeah. I know other sellers do, but it's just not been something that I've messed with.
Yeah, and if we experience that, if we, you know, do an experiment with that in the future and we learn something, we'll add it to the course. That's one of the cool things about the Reseller's Guide to Selling Shoes. When you purchase it, you're enrolled in the lifetime ownership program. That means anytime we add a video, add a bonus, update the book, update the course, you get the updates for free for life. And so the more we learn, the more we're going to put together and add it to the course, you get it for free. And now is the best time to get it, because, you know, there's the coupon code. Using the coupon code SHOES10, you can save $10 off the cost of the course. That coupon code expires at 11:59 p.m. March 6th, so you want to make sure that you take advantage of that. So again, thanks for hanging out with us. Y'all have asked a lot of really good questions, and it's been fun. It's almost 9:30 Central Time, 10:30 Eastern, and so we want to respect your time and get you to bed or whatever. And
your kids.
Yes, exactly. But don't worry, if you've missed out on anything or you're curious about anything we've talked about, we will send out a replay link to everyone who registered. And if you're here, hey, you registered, obviously. So thanks again for hanging out with us. Again, fulltimefba.com/selling shoes is the course. If you get the course, 100-plus page ebook, 4.5 hours of video content, plus all the 11 bonuses, the 6 PDFs, the 5 bonus videos, plenty of stuff to help you with your Amazon business to get started with shoes and find success with shoes. There's so much more that we can't wait to share with you in the course, so go check it out today. So I'm going to end the recording. We're going to get going. Anything else you want to say?
No,
okay.
I think that's it.
That's it. All right, awesome. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and we'll see you again on the next webinar. We'll see you later.
Bye.
That's the awkward part where I try to find where's the stop recording button.
This?
Yes, so here's the stop recording. Later.